All right, welcome everybody. I'm Rabbi Hirschberg, and we're going to get started tonight, but I want to just sort of give you guys sort of an introduction to what to expect and whatnot. This is like a very, very large group. So the first thing I have to say is going to be about names, okay? I'm really, 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 really bad at it. So I could theoretically, we could do camping and go around and you tell me like what your name is and what you want to be when you grow up and so on and so forth, but it'd be a waste of time anyway. So what we're going to do is like this. Basically, for a very, very long time, anytime you talk, I'm going to say, what's your name? Okay? And if we're on the topic of talking, questions. At whatever point you have a question, that's good. I might tell you, hold on, I'm going to get to that. That's a good question. It'll be too much of a detour to answer it now. I'll talk to you about it later, and so on and so forth. And if I tell you, I'll get back to you, and I don't, nudge me. That's sort of one more sort of just logistic point, and then we'll start talking about what the class is actually about. This year, I'm going to record, and I'm going to take the source sheets, I'm going to put them all up on the internet in an organized manner, which I should have been doing for a very, very long time. So this class is originally the title was the history, development, and system of Torah Sheba'al Peh. So history is sort of the order of events, but really it's more about the development and system. And the development of the system are very, very interrelated. So by development, I am telling you that the Torah Sheba'al Peh has changed, right, over time. And we're going to look at those changes and what caused them and how they're manifest and how they function. So like a very, very basic, very, very basic question we're going to talk a lot about is, everybody after the Mishnah is beholden to the Mishnah. They can't really disagree. The Mishnah is authoritative in the Gemara. Why? What is that based on? Who said? Right? How does that work? What's the halachic basis for it? Right? The same thing with the Gemara. Right? These types of questions. What caused it to happen? Why, until Rebbe wrote the Mishnah, everybody was happy. Why? What happened? Right? So that's sort of development. And system is really about. So like I said, what is the authority of the Mishnah? What is the authority of the Gemara? What can a posek say? What can a posek not say? All these things are really about the system of halacha. Like when we look at halacha, we're a lot of times we're in the weeds, right? You go in the Gemara, you're in the weeds. You're looking at this issue and that issue and so on and so forth. But there's sort of these constitutional structures that sort of define how these laws interact. Who can say what? Who cannot say what? And so on and so forth. And so this class is going to be about that. A lot of different questions, and the first class, by the way, is going to be all just sort of samplings of the kinds of issues that we're going to be talking about. Mostly the sources are going to be various things from the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and a lot of Rambam, a lot of Rav Shri Gaon, a lot of Rav Shri Gaon. Most of the words I think that we're going to see over the year are Rav Shri Gaon. Rav Shri Gaon lived, I think, from 900 to 1000. He died in 900, sorry. He died exactly 100 years old. And he was a Gaon. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Bavel before the Rishonim. And these Chachamim from Northern Africa sent him a bunch of questions about the Torah Sheba'al Peh. And just like a politician, he sort of, a politician asking one question, and then they tell you what they want to tell you. So he actually answers their questions, but he tells them much more than they asked him. And it's really probably, other than the Torah Sheba'al Peh itself, the most important source we have about the Torah Sheba'al Peh. So those are going to be the sources. This is a source sheet I want to start with. We can pass them around. And we will get started. I have to apologize. On one of these sheets, there's two sort of very dark things that are very, very difficult to read. And I'm going to read it off my phone because in the original PDF, it's much, much more readable. And you might be able to follow along. And this is really, it's front page and back page. And really, it's just a sort of a sampling about the issues that we're going to deal with, right? They're going to be mostly questions. There are, and we're not going to go in order, by the way. There's one thing I do want to sort of throw out what this class is not going to be about. What it's not going to be about is how do I know the Torah Sheba'al Peh is true, right? How do I know that it wasn't made up by the Chachamim and so on and so forth, right? There's going to be a little bit of that because we're going to see, there's going to be this very, very fundamental question, which is obviously not the entirety of the Torah Sheba'al Peh is Misinai, right? And so the question is, what is and what isn't, is a very, very interesting question, and we're going to deal with that over the year. But as far as, how do I know that the Torah Sheba'al Peh wasn't just made up in the time, in time of Bais Sheni, right? Which is, there are a lot of people who assume that, okay? I can't even count the amount of times that I've heard from people basically assume that the Torah was originally just a document by itself and that there was no Torah Sheba'al Peh, and that the Chachamim came and sort of modified it to mean whatever they wanted it to mean by creating this Torah Sheba'al Peh. It was in the newspaper. It's just like, this idea is a very, very common idea, and I don't want to get into how do I know it's not true, and so on and so forth. I will say the following things, and then we're going to see some sources here, which is that by definition, before anything is written down, we're talking about prehistory. The definition of prehistory, if you look it up in the dictionary, means what happened before things were written down, right? So, to some degree, everybody's ideas about the Torah Sheba'al Peh are going to be speculative. But, meaning prior to Bais Sheni, right, when they start writing things down. But I think, I will share with you a few sources, they're on the backside of this thing, that I think address this issue, which is that I think that if you look carefully at, it's not in the backside, the first line is the last line of the front side. I think that it's evident from the Torah Shebeksav that there was a Torah Sheba'al Peh all along. Okay, and so we're going to see a few sources about this. They're interesting, and to me, the fact that there was a Torah Sheba'al Peh is there was once a book I really disliked it, and it actually wasn't funny. There's a book called The Year of Living Biblically. Anybody read the book?
I've heard of it.
I've read it.
Yeah.
I'll say some person who decides he's going to have his own literal interpretation,
right?
Or decides to, sort of half mock. I guess it's sort of like he decides to keep it for a year, and he sort of so he quickly abandons it.
No. So he does it for a year, it's very silly book, and it's whatever. But he says, I'm going to live biblically. Okay, so he Xeroxed the parshas of Shema and tied it to his arm for tefillah. Right, stuff like that, right? But it's very, very clear you can't really live biblically because it's a document that as a document, it's not a very clear document, right? It's not really actionable. You can't really read it and do anything. So that is the main point I'm going to make, but I'm going to make it very with specific details. Yeah.
What do you do for head shoulder?
I think he tied it on his head.
So the book's kind of fake.
Yeah, totally. Right. You see, he relied on Torah Sheba'al Peh thing for it. But for instance, in the book, he decided that he needed to stone an adulterer. So he literally, he claims to have walked around Central Park asking men if they would cheat on their wives. And he finally got some guy who said yes, and he threw a pebble at him and ran away. Okay? This is the level of this book, right? But, Seder. All right. So we'll start with a pasuk from this week's parsha. It's the last line on the front of this page. Al pi shnayim edim o shlosha edim yumos ameis lo yumos al pi eid echad. Okay, so this is a pasuk. You kill somebody according on the testimony of 2 edim or 3 edim. Okay, and not one. Okay, so you'd think that's a very, very clear pasuk, right? It says not 1, 2, or 3, so it means 2 or greater, right? It seems to be very, very clear. Okay, turn over the page. This is from the Ibn Ezra. Now, the Ibn Ezra was. I introduced people. I introduced the Chachamim that I like to quote. The Ibn Ezra's. I have sort of obsession with him. He was he's mainly known for his parish on Chumash. He wrote other things. He was a huge genius, and he lived a very interesting life. He was from Spain, and then he wandered around Europe for 25 years, and he died in London. And he, even though he was from Muslim Spain and he spoke Arabic and so on and so forth, he lived in London for a while, 7 years towards the end of his life. And he was involved in a polemic with the Karaites, and the Karaites basically had this claim that the Torah Sheba'al Peh that we have is invalid, that it was corrupted beyond use, and therefore you just read the Torah Shebeksav and live your life. Okay, and so he's constantly pointing out how you can't do that. Okay? So here's what Ibn Ezra says. His parish is, by the way, usually very, very difficult to understand. He writes in a very, very sparse language. Okay. Al pi shnayim edim or shlosha edim, mekablim edu shnayim al das hagon. So according to Rav Sadia Gaon, why does it say 2 or 3? Right? Because obviously, if it's 2, then I know about 3, right? So according to Rav Sadia Gaon, 3 is the minimal amount of people who accept a testimony. Okay, because it's the smallest size of a bezdin. Okay, which is very okay. V'hinei lo purash b'Torah im tikubal edus hashe'er va'isha va'edus oyev hameis. So note that in the Torah it doesn't say whether or not you can accept testimony from a relative or a woman or somebody who's in a fight with one of the with the dead guy. So somebody's accused of murder, and then you have somebody walks in and he gives testimony, but everybody knows that he was in a fight with the dead guy anyway, right? So it doesn't say anywhere in the Chumash whether or not these are valid edim, right? So there's something missing. These are obvious questions about any system within which you have the concept of testimony. You have to have some kind of addressing of these issues, right? It's not in there. It's not in the Chumash. V'yesh omrim, there are others who say in this pasuk, Im hayu shnayim edim mechishim shnei edim, hashlishi yachriya l'schuso l'chova. Right? So some people give a different answer for why it says 2 or 3. So if you have a contradiction. So let's say 2 edim come in and they say, yeah, he killed him. Right? And then another 2 came and say, no, he didn't. So then whoever can bring a third aid, they win. Right? Some people, that's the way they understand this pasuk. Others say, so if you get sort of wise people, smart people, educated people, right? So then you only need 2. But if they're regular sort of like shmos, then you need 3, right? In other words, there's so many different ways to understand this pasuk that says 2 or 3, why it had to specify that. Right? He says, we must have some type of Masorah. There's really no way to understand what the pasuk means to tell us by saying 2 or 3. Okay? So, this is an example that I would call, there's 2 things. Okay? I want to say there's 3 things that are problematic in the Torah in terms of its incompleteness. Yeah. Wait, what's your name?
Darius.
Darius?
Yes.
Okay.
Why can't we assume that maybe there were 2 different strains of thought? That one, not that it was like, that there was a received tradition and that, that to resolve the issue with a single answer, but rather that there were different tribes had different, practices.
Yeah.
Some followed 2 and some followed 3. And so the Torah was saying you can diversify.
You could do 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
based on your
So again,
but you can't do 4, you can't do 1.
So okay, so it is true that sometimes the Torah puts into the mitzvahs behaviors that existed in the world at that time. Okay, but at the same time, that's fine, but it's speculative because there's no reason to assume it means that over one of these perushim. Right? In other words, his point is he's not trying to tell you what it means. He's trying to tell you that you can't know what it means without a Masorah. Right? That more or less answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think there are 3 things. There's 3 kinds of incompleteness in the Torah that points to the fact that there must have been an oral tradition that went along with it. Yeah.
It's Oren.
Okay.
In the example that you gave, why would it have to be that the Masorah came from Har Sinai? Why couldn't it have just been that a guy was reading it or a rabbi was reading it and said, here's what I think makes sense, and then that was the Masorah.
Okay, so it has because it has to come along with the text, because the problem is in the text of the Torah.
Okay.
So forget about Sinai. However old this text is, whoever wrote this text, right? It was meant to be some type of legal codification, which means that there had to be some kind of meaning to it. But the meaning of the text to say it's unclear is like an exaggeration. It's completely unclear, right?
Okay, so you can say that.
You don't have to hold your hand up. I'll remember.
You can say that the Masorah is man-made, but still stems from roughly the origin of the Torah, without saying that it's godly.
So I don't want to get into like Torah Sinai or not. The assumption is we're talking Torah Sinai. The point that I'm trying to make is that the Torah Shabbat requires a Torah Shabbat. Yeah.
Isn't why now is we talk about Shrita that Hashem.
So it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. What's your name?
Rafi Klausner.
Rafi Klausner. Okay, Rafi. It doesn't matter because by the time I walk out the door, I'm not going to remember his name. But okay, I will. Over time, I'll get some of you. Yeah.
How much should
And your name?
Yosef?
Okay.
How much should Torshbal Pet is stuff that I guess it's like straight Torshbal Pet only, no Torshbal style versus things that are just they're just sort of definitional to it, like what a certain word means.
All right, that's a very, very good question. Okay. That'll come later. Okay, not later tonight. Later this year.
So
Okay.
you're asking like,
It's like the difference between stuff in the Torshbal Pet. I believe there were certain halachos where it said like this Torshbal Pet, nothing Torshbal style hints to it. Am I correct in that?
Yes, there are Torah Shabbat pez that are just hanging there and unrelated to any pasuk.
Yes, then there are others like say sukkah. That's just the definition of the word sukkah. Sukkot Yeshevi, the Torah Shabbat has just defined it, so that could just be like a sort of duh. Of course, that's what that means. Or amma. It's like there's a Torah Shabbat about how long an amma is, but people then it's just like
Okay, so that's a lot of
so.
over the year that's going to come up a bunch of times, and we'll deal with it. So I want to say that there are three sort of lackings in the Torah Shabbat that point in the direction of a Torah Shabbat Peh. Okay, and two of them are in this Ibn Ezra and in this pasuk. One is what I would call just simply there's something missing, which is okay. There's nothing. Forget about the text. You're discussing Adim, right? Witnesses. There are some very, very obvious questions that every single legal system in the history of humanity that has witnesses has dealt with, and it doesn't appear here. Okay? So it's not a problem with the text, it's just simply there's a pasuk missing, so to speak, right?
But you're not arguing necessarily that there was a very specific oral tradition, but that there had to be some existent practices that came along with it where they did have some sort of known.
I'm saying that the text of the Torah itself is not enough.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And that itself points
and
to...
maybe it's meant to represent some existing practices that...
So it could be. That's possible.
And they didn't feel a need to
they could have come from Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai. It could be that they were practices, and then at Sinai they said, okay, now we're going to do this. Or it could be that there was an assumption that this is what this meant, right?
Exactly.
That's possible. I'm not ruling that out. I mean, there's certain cases in the Torah Shabbat where that you can't say that, where it just doesn't work, right? But that is possible. Okay. So the first is a lacking, like he says, like the Ibn Ezra says. It doesn't say whether or not you can accept the testimony of a woman or of an enemy of one of the people involved or of a relative. So there's a gap, right? There's a hole in the text, right? Not that there's a problem with the text. The second is that there's an ambiguity here. It says 2 or 3, right? And it's not clear why you would say that, because you would know 3 if you have 2, right? And as he points out, even up into in the year 1100, there had already been 4 or 5 different possible interpretations of 3 or 4, even before Darius. What?
2 or 3, not 3 or 4.
No. Different interpretations, not 8.
Okay.
Yeah. So even before Darius came up with a new one, there's all these different ways. The text is simply ambiguous. So there's lackings, there's ambiguity, and then finally there's another one. There's another category of these problems in the text, as I can't remember his name. Rafi pointed out with Shechita. We'll see the Shechita example in a second. But there's also another one which comes from the Ibn Ezra. Okay, this is the next text from Dvarim. Kiya nara b'sula marasa leish umatza ish ba'ir v'shochavimas. Right. So this is the mitzvah of nara marasa. She's engaged, right? Erusin, right? And somebody sleeps with her. Okay. And then you bring them both to the shar where the dayanim sit. So the assumption is that she was this was consensual, and so you kill them both. They both chayv skila, right? And she, because she didn't object, if she'd objected, right? If she had not wanted to do this, then it's onus. She's not chayv anything. And him, because he slept with Eishes Re'ehu, his friend's wife. He slept with a married woman, but she's not married. There's Erusin. Okay? So anybody here ever learn Kiddushin? Yeah, we all know Erusin, Nisuin, and so on and so forth. Says the Ibn Ezra, very concisely. Okay? Shar, Mokom Sheves Ziknei. Here he says the Shar is where the Ziknei Oir, the Dayanim sit. Hakasav Kar HaMeurasa Eishes Re'ehu. This pasuk clearly calls a Meurasa, a woman who's only Erusin, right? Calls her Eishes Re'ehu. There's no way that we can know how a woman becomes an Arusa except through the Torah Sheba'al Peh. In other words, we take this concept, which is marriage, right? And we say, oh no, it's divided up into two parts, right? We're all familiar with this from Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? But it's referenced literally in the Chumash, but it doesn't tell you what it is. It doesn't tell you that. So, Isha Niknes B'Shlosh Drachim, and so on and so forth. We're going to talk a lot about this because it's very interesting stuff there about specifically about what's Misinai, what's not Misinai, what's Derbanan, what's not Derbanan. Very interesting thing in the Rambam about it. But where he changed his mind twice. Yeah, he did. He says he changed his mind. All right, say it.
I'm fine.
All right, say it. But here we have in the Torah a reference to this concept called Erusin, and it's not in the Torah anywhere. So where is it? It was somewhere, and it was in the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Yeah, just like Shechita, by the way.
You don't necessarily know it was in our Torah Sheba'al Peh. It could have been a tradition that existed.
Seder. That's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But so then that becomes the Torah Sheba'al Peh of the text.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay. One more, and that's the one Rafi brought up. So this is the third time. So the first was that there's something clearly missing from the text, right? It's like you're talking to a person, they start telling you a story, and they leave out, like there's clearly a hole in the story. It's the same thing. We talked about witnesses. We didn't specify certain very obvious questions. Second one is ambiguities. There's a lot of texts that are ambiguous. By the way, there's a lot of that, right? Like open up Parshas Mishpatim and see if you could build a legal system around it. It's very, very ambiguous, right? And the third one is what I would call so for what I'm not here during the day, I work in computers. It's what I would call we call in computers a dangling reference, right? It's somebody says, "Yeah, Erusin." Nobody said what Erusin is in the text of the Torah, so that has to be referenced to somewhere. It's the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay, and another example of this, simply because it is very, very, very famous, okay? And it is so originally in the Midbar there was they were not allowed to just eat meat. You had to bring carbon, right? And then when they come to Eretz Yisrael, they're allowed to eat meat, also not in the context of a carbon. And this is the heter. It's called heter basar taiva. It's called basar taiva. And this is the pasuk that tells you. By the way, when you go into Eretz Yisrael, and the Beis Mikdash is going to be very far away. Obviously, you don't have to go to Beis Mikdash in order to have a steak. So, when the place is far from you, where God has chosen to put His name, you will shecht your animals that God has given you, as I have commanded you. So you should shecht as I have commanded you. It doesn't say anywhere. There's nowhere in the Torah that tells you how to do shechita. Okay, and that's the Gemara says that. The Tanya Rebbe Omer v'zavachto kashet tzivizicha melamed shenitztava Moshe ala veshet v'alakanev al rov echad ba'of al rov shnayim b'behema. All these are halachas, specific halachas around shechita. How far you have to cut, and whether there's these two pipes in there, whether it has to be the rove of one or rove of two, and so on and so forth. All these things. So we see from the fact that it says, "As I have commanded you," it's another dangling reference, just like Nara Murasa, right? There's a place where the Torah references a certain halacha that does not appear in the Torah. Okay, so those are the three kind of, like, I would say, incompleteness is in the Torah. As somebody brought up, I don't remember who it was. I think it was you, and your name is
Yosef.
There are also things in the Torah Sheba'al Peh that have no connection to anything in the Chumash, right? Well, some connection, but they don't hang on any pasuk, or they're not. It's not a perush of any kind of thing that's in the pasuk, right? There are things like that. Okay, so that's as far as we're going to go in terms of how do I know that there's a Torah Sheba'al Peh? In my opinion, it's clear from the text of the Torah that there had to have been a Torah Sheba'al Peh, and then after that, we're just arguing over what it is, right? And that's a separate thing. All right, so we can flip the page over, and now I want to start sort of going over the kinds of questions we're going to be talking about over the year. And I will warn, there's a warning here, which is just from experience. This is the subject matter of this class is something where sort of what was it, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? There's everything is connected to everything, right? So you there's a lot of things that are going to keep recurring. Okay, but also if you want to discuss the authority of the Mishnah, you're going to wind up talking about what are the drushas and how they Misinai, and then you're going to wind up talking about Torah Sheba'al Peh. Everything is sort of connected. You guys know that book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and one thing leads to another. Everything's connected. It's just the way the subject matter is. Okay, so often because of that, by the way, often questions are going to come up, and I'm going to say not for tonight. Okay. All right. So the first source it's a very, very important source because it gets quoted a lot, and I'm going to read it and translate it, and then I'm going to tell you guys, just throw out some questions. By the way, if you have questions of your own, of course, you are welcome to ask them. It's Gemara in Brachos. Amar of Levi Berchama, Amar of Shimon Lakish, Mai Dichsiv. So Rabbi Shimon Lakish said, what does the pasuk mean? Ve'edna locha es luchos ha'evan va'torah va'mitzvah asher kosavti lahorosam. Right. So very often, if we look at a pasuk, there seems to be sort of pointless or hard to understand repetition. So what is it exactly that God gave to Moshe? The Luchos HaEvan, the Torah, and the Mitzvah that he wrote to teach them. So a lot of different words in there, basically saying, I gave you the Torah. Right? So what do all those words mean? So Rabbi Shimon Lakish said the following. Luchos elu aseres hadibros. So when it says luchos, it means the 10 Commandments. Aseres hadibros. Torah is a mikra. Torah means the Chumash. Mitzvah is a Mishnah. The mitzvah is the Mishnah. Asher kasavti elu nevim v'ksuvim. Right. When it says kasavti, it's referring to Nach. Lahorosam ze to Girsas Gemara Talmud whatever. Melamed shekulam nidnu l'Moshe misinai. Okay, if we read this literally, okay, what he just said is the 10 Commandments, the Chumash, the Nach, the Mishnah, and the Gemara were given to Moshe at Sinai. Okay, now, and if you walk around and talk to people, there are people who believe this. Okay, in a sort of literal sense, even though it makes absolutely no sense. Okay, so Chumash, yeah, okay, I'm all for that, but Nach, Mishnah, right? Rebbe wrote the Mishnah. It says that, right? We're going to see. He might not have actually written it, but that's a separate issue, right? That's going to be a big sugya we do, right? What exactly does this Gemara mean, right? So is it just an exaggeration? I don't think it's just an exaggeration, right?
Many of the Nevi'im are written from the point of view of the Navi take place long after Moshe's time.
Yeah.
And really, the Navi isn't. We don't really have these sort of Navi or any of that.
Right.
Why would he even need to get pushed? Right?
Oh, this is a very good question. Why does he feel the need to say? So you can understand why they say the Mishnah. It's Misinai. Because on some level it includes the Torah Sheba'al Peh, okay, right? So, but Nach, why? Why is he even saying that the Nach is Misinai? What's the point of that, right? And the Gemara, right? I mean, it's clear when you learn the Gemara that they're working it out as they go on, right? Okay. Now, I'm not saying they're making it up. Okay, I'm not saying that, right? It's interpretation, but it's clearly not Misinai, right? In the sense that God gave it. Okay, so like I said, it's going to be questions. Okay, so I'm stating I don't think this is to be taken literally, and that we're going to have, and I also don't think it's just an exaggeration to keep people from, right? So sometimes we say things that are not literally true because we don't want to get into the complexities of our religion in front of everybody, right? So there's the sort of simple example of this is that God does not exist in space, right? Space is something that doesn't apply to him, right? But yet, everybody gets told that God is everywhere, right? Why? Because if you tell a kid that God is nowhere, then that's the same as saying God doesn't exist, right? So also Torah Sheba'al Peh, there are complexities, and we're going to see them this year, right? There are complexities to the story of Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's not Misinai, okay? In the sense that, the Mishnah and the Gemara came, Moshe Rabbeinu walked down from Har Sinai with Shas, and I remember once Rabbi Chait said there are people who think that Moshe Rabbeinu walked down from Har Sinai with the Luchos and a Mishnah Berurah and a magnifying glass, right? So it's not like that. There are complexities. Some of it is Misinai. Important parts of it are Misinai. Some of it is not. Right? There are complexities to the story, and so sometimes we have exaggerations that are designed to sort of simplify complexities, just so that people be from. But this is not that. I think there's something real here, and we're going to see, and it's all going to make sense later on in the year. Okay? On the same set of issues. The next text is from the Rambam, the Akdama to Perek Chelek, specifically from the Yud Gimel Ikarim, and he says the following: V'hu shenamin ki kol Torah azos hanasuna al yedei Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom. We should believe that the entire Torah given to Moshe Rabbeinu, shikula mipi agvura, that it's all from God's mouth, so to speak. And kumo kain perusha Torah hamakubal, gam kain mipi agvura. And so too, the perush of the Torah that we received, meaning the Torah Sheba'al Peh, is also mipi agvura. It's also from God. V'zeh she'anu osim hayom mitavnis hasukah v'lulav v'shofar v'tzitzis v'tfilin v'zulasam. Right? The things that we do, those forms, the form of the things that we do, the sukkah, lulav, shofar, tzitzis, tefillin, and all others, hu ba'atzmo hatavnis asher omar Hashem li izbarach l'Moshe, v'u omar lanu, v'hu ne'eman b'shlichusa. That's the exact form that God told Moshe. It's the same way we have what our sukkah looks like. When God told Moshe Rabbeinu what a sukkah is supposed to look like, that's what it looked like. Same thing. Okay? Now, that's what the Rambam just said. Okay. Now this is. I have to see that thing. It's almost impossible to read. Some of you might be able to read it. I am going to read it from my PDF that I sent to Shmuel David, because I can't read it out of this thing. So if you can follow along, and if not, you can trust me that I am reading it. I know how to read. Okay, the first is in order to sort of ask a question on that Rambam. Okay, there's sort of a cool story. It's brought back in the end of the sefer called Nefesh HaChaim. Everybody know what that sefer is, Nefesh HaChaim? Really?
Yeah. That's very Kabbalistic.
It is very Kabbalistic. It's Rav Chaim Volozhiner. He's sort of they call him he's the founder of the modern yeshiva system. He opened the yeshiva, the Volozhin yeshiva. Basically, every Ashkenazi yeshiva in existence is somehow a descendant of that yeshiva. To give you a feel for it, later on, further on into the lifetime of that yeshiva, Rav Chaim Brisker was a Rosh Yeshiva. His father was a Rosh Yeshiva. Both of them were Rosh Yeshiva at Rosh Yeshiva at the Volozhin Yeshiva. And so Rav Chaim Volozhin wrote a sefer called Nefesh HaChaim. He was a student of the Gra. He was Talmid of the Gra. And in the back, his son put in the back of the sefer. There's printed these stories that he heard from his father. These little sort of vignettes. Okay, and there's a story here about a question that the Gra that Rav Chaim Volozhin asked the Gra about why he didn't put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Okay, so everybody knows. I think like Chabad and Hasidim, they like to put on the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, and basically nobody else does. Okay, and so this was Hasidus was the sort of the hot topic of the day. Okay, in that time, and so Reb Chaim Volozhin asked the Gra, why not put on Rabbeinu Tam tefillin? Okay, so he said like this: Shal Rabbeinu es a Gra zal. Our master asked the Gra. And this is what he said to him in his beautiful language. He says, mainly you, by the way, it's in Lashon Rabim. He says atem. Why? Because in Yiddish, okay, the respectful way of talking to a person who's like chashuv is you use words that mean plural. Okay, so when the author of this was a Yiddish speaker, and so he translated it. He spoke to the Gra. He was not speaking to a group of people. He was speaking to the Gra. He says, mainly you don't want to walk Daled Amos without tefillin. You never take off your tefillin. Alkain, ein atem, Menichim tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam. That's why you don't put on tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam. Kadei shelo levatel me'arashi. So you don't take off your Rashi tefillin, because that's really the way we pass it. Avani mabakachi maniach tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam. Kadei letzeis kol hadeos. So this is me. This is why shouldn't I? I should put on tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam once a day, just so be yotzei all the opinions. Okay, so that's what he asked the Gra. Why not? Why not put on tefillin de Rabbeinu Tam? Okay. Heishif, im tirtza l'seis kol hadeos, taniach chav dal zugos tefillin. So the Gra said, if you want to be yotzei every shita, you have to put on 24 pairs of tefillin. That's what the Gra told him. Okay. Dok v'tishkach. And he told him, v'amispale. Right? He was, so Chaim Volozhiner was, he was amazed. Heichan matzah chav dal zugos. How did you get to 24? Heishiv lo dok v'tishkach. He said, go check and you'll see that I'm right. That's what he told him. Nafak dok v'ashkach. He left the Gra, and he went and he checked, and he found, and the Gra was right. How do you get to it? Hainu, sheish dei shlishi shel Rav Sar Shalom. Anybody know what the difference between Rashi tefillin and Rabbeinu Tam tefillin is?
The order of the
Right, the order of the parshas. Okay, so first there's the third shita of Rav Sar Shalom Gaon. Rav Sar Shalom sover Rabbeinu Tam. Right? Rak Rabbeinu Tam maschil laniach haparshiyos besocha batim yamin l'smol v'u maschil mismol yamin. So it's just like Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, but the order in which you put them in, you start from the right to the left and from the left to the right. So there's a third shita really, right? There's the order of the parshas and whether it starts from right to left or left to right. So there's three. Okay, so we're starting with three. Hare Gimel Zugo. So now we're up to three. V'od yesh machlokas haposkim im aparshios you omdim o shochvim. Hare Sheish. Aside from the whole Rashi Rabbeinu Tam Rav Sar Shalom, there's another machlokas whether or not you put in the parshas standing up or lying down. So that's 3 times 2. Okay, so we're at 6. Od yesh deos betmunas haosios hare yud beis. Right? There's some machlokas. He doesn't say which one it is about how the shapes of the letters. Right. So now we're up to 12. 6 times 2 is 12. Odish machlokas the poskim im lichtov al makam seir al makam basar. Harei chavdal zugos. Right? The question where on the cloth? On the place, there's the outside or the inside of the cloth, right? It's animal skin.
Isn't there also Machalos Rashi Rambam about how to make the cloth? That would be 24. Yeah, there is. I'm saying
Could be.
Rashi holds like they're different substances they use to like.
Oh, but I don't know if each one holds or the other one is. I don't know.
Well, no, Ram holds Rashi's puzzle, but Rashi doesn't hold Ram's puzzle. But
so then you could do Ram.
Rashi. Yeah, I know, but
Right.
everyone does Rashi.
Oh, really? Okay, say it, whatever. So this was his calculation. He got to 24. Okay, so now, yeah,
This is bad for Minnesota.
right. Exactly. That's exactly the point. Just statistically speaking, okay, there's a 1 in 24 chance that your tefillin is like Moshe Rabbeinu's.
Not only that, like this is very easy to transmit, right? Like you got a group of people who are writing these down. They're very long lasting, right? You got these boxes. We have to last lifetimes. Some people even have like their grandfathers still in. Like it's very easy to keep around.
Yeah.
So you can just like look. If we're saying the Masorah of like Valpet, which is like what you say and remember is very easily misconstrued, and your memory can be false.
Yeah.
Like a literal box that keeps words in it forever should be the easiest thing to do.
Exactly.
Like 24 options.
Right, exactly. So that question's going to come up a lot this year. Okay, the best example I've ever seen of that question is in the Chavas Yair. We'll see it. It's a shoot. He was a big posek in Europe, and he wrote this very interesting tshuva. Actually, it's going to be quoted in a second. A different part of it. It's like 40 pages long. He asks, "Zmachlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, whether you right, like Beis Shammai holds that at Krishma at night you lie down, and then in the morning you like lean, and then in the morning you stand up, right? And Beis Hillel says, no, it doesn't matter how you, right? So he says, how did that develop? How did they not see every single day Jews do this? How did that get lost? How could it possibly have gotten lost, right?
Yeah.
Right? And we'll see that this question is going to be dealt with. It's a great question, but And so I wanted to juxtapose that Rambam where he says we need to believe that the tefillin we have and the sukkah we have and the lulav we have, it looks just like Moshe Rabbeinu's, right? And forget about which one is more likely, blah, 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 and Elu Ve'elu Divrei Elokim Chaim, which you don't have to have a lot of imagination to understand, that we can say, okay, we admit for machlokas and we understand this is a mechanism for making decisions. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out, but just statistically speaking, the odds that our tefillin are the same as Moshe Rabbeinu's are very, very low, right? So, what are we going to do about this? Okay? Question. It's for later this year. We're going to talk about this stuff over the year, right? Yeah. Another issue that's going to come up a lot this year is the following. I'm just going to present the issue. The Rambam, this is a very, very, very famous claim of the Rambam's, okay? And he's very, very adamant about it. And at first glance, it's extreme. It's very, very extreme. So much so that people say, no, there's no way he possibly meant it, and so on and so forth. But he meant it. There's no question about it, okay? Because he elaborates on it, okay? So the Rambam, the shortest formulation of it that I could find is in Hilchos Mamrim. The Rambam says, Divrei Kabbalah means things of the Masorah. Ein ben machlokas lo olam. There's no machlokas ever on something that is a Masorah. Halacha Moshe Sinai, so to speak. Anything that there's a machlokas about can't come from Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay? Now, it's a very extreme claim. Now, if you think about your exposure to Torah Sheba'al Peh, there's a machlokas about everything, right? I mean, almost everything. Actually, a lot of things there's not a machlokas about. It's just we don't notice it because most of the Torah Sheba'al Peh develops around the things that there's machlokas about. But there's a lot of machlokas. What?
Are there Gemaras that just straight up, this is a Torah Sheba'al Peh? This is
halacha. Yes. So when I said that there's a 40-page tshuva of the Chavos Yair about, right? It's about this question. Is that somebody asked him, like, how exactly could the Rambam have said this? Just like there's just so any, and so he goes through a long list. Okay, and the Rambam even says. The Rambam has famously in the Hagdama to the Mishnah, he says, by the way, I'll tell you all the halacha Moshe Sinai. There's only about 30 or 40 of them. That's not really possible, right? The Rambam himself really holds that there's more. We have to see there's a difference between the halacha Moshe Sinai, a very, very specific term according to the Rambam, and we'll see this. There's a machlokas about this, okay? So the Chavos Yair, I'll read to you guys briefly what the Chavos Yair, it's another one of these dark, unreadable things. That's even worse. So the story of this tshuva of the Chavos Yair was somebody sent him a shaila where there's a Tosfos that says that implies that you can have a machlokas about a halacha Moshe Sinai. Okay, so he says, how could he possibly say that? And the Chavos Yair basically answers him. He says, look, before I even get into the details, but Tosfos can disagree with the Rambam as much as he wants. Okay, and then he says the following. He says, don't try and explain the Tosfos. Okay? The Tosfos said what he meant, and he means what he says. No matter what they mean, and you can always explain things. He says, unlike the Rambam, clearly the Tosfos holds that halacha Moshe Sinai get lost and forgotten and distorted, and it develops into a machlokas. And then he says, and not only does the Tosfos says this is the truth, which is clear like the sun in the afternoon. Lo mitzad svara. Not because it makes sense to me. Rakmi tile tilin gemaros aruchos. Right? He says from thousands of explicit gemaras, it's clear that you can have machlokas on halacha Moshe Sinai. So we have to deal with this. How exactly did the Rambam, if that's true, right? So one of these people, there's two extreme claims on either side. The Rambam said, no, never have a machlokas on halacha Moshe Sinai, and the Chavos Yair says, what do you mean? There's thousands of gemaras where it happens, right? So how do we understand this, right? We have to understand this. Second of all, I think just from a svara perspective, it's a very interesting question. Like the Rambam, he says there in the Tshuva, the Rambam, where he said he wanted to build a fortress around the Masorah. He says, and I wish I could leave that fortress standing. Because there's a great advantage to Rambam's claim. Because it means that whatever part of the Torah Sheba'al Peh is really Misinai, right? It's very, very high fidelity. Nobody disagrees with it, right? Within our Masorah, right? That's what the Rambam is really claiming. That the parts that are Misinai, nobody disagrees with, right? So we have to deal with that. What is it okay in our Masorah that something was Misinai, and then at some point it became unclear, right? As what's your name again? As Aaron basically asked about tefillin, right? A, how does it happen? B, why are we okay with this, right? Or perhaps it doesn't happen according to the Rama, right? So it's an interesting kind of question. Okay, another, if you guys were my kids, I would offer 5 shekels for the following question. Anybody remember who Yossi ben Yoezer is? I'm not offering 5 shekels because that would be degrading to you guys. Because
Can you repeat the name?
Yossi ben Yoezer.
And did he?
No, you're Madrich, you don't count. But you can answer.
No, I might be wrong though. That actually sounds awful. But was he one of the guys who translated like one of the old Jewish, not Hebrew?
No. Yossi ben Yoezer and Yosef ben Yochanan, they're from the Zugos. They're from those Tanaim that are right at the beginning of Pirkei Avos. Right? Remember, there's right, Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai, Sorah Yeshua L'Skeim, Yeshua L'Anshei Knesset Gedola, and then there was who is it there? The Anshe Knesset Gedola, and who was Mishiarei Anshe Knesset Gedola? I'm like blanking because Shimon Tzadik, sorry, right, and so on and so forth. And then there's these Zugos. There's a bunch of Mishnayos where it was him and him, right? These two. One was the Nasi and one was the Av Bezdin. We'll talk about what those two things. The two highest people in the Sanhedrin, right? So we're talking about the earliest names that appear in the Mishnah. Really, okay? They're like right as the end, as the Anshe Knesset Gedola just wound down. So we say, Yossi ben Yoezer Omer Shelo Lismoch. Yosef ben Yochanan Omer Lismoch. So it's a machlokas. You bring a carbon on Shabbos, do you do smicha? Smicha was like you put your hand on the animal, you lean on it. By the way, we're going to talk a lot about this. It's the next shir, right? But so, and Rashi says, the Zoy machlokas Rishona Shoysa B'Chachmei Yisrael. This is the first machlokas. Okay, Rashi says this. By the way, if you look. Like the Gra said to Rav Chaim Volozhin, Dok v'tishkach. If you go check, you'll find that this is true. You can, if you work out the history, okay, of all the shitas that we know about, nobody comes before these guys. Okay, there's no machlokas that existed we know about before this. Now, how can this possibly be? Right? You see how the Gemara works, right? You see how halacha works. You've seen enough to know that it's very easy to interpret things so that there is a machlokas. How is it possible that from the time the Torah was given until I want to say it's around the year, it's like a little bit before the year 0, so I don't know, like maybe it's like 200 BC, I don't know, something like that. How is it possible that for close to 1,000 years, or maybe even more, I'm not into the number thing, right? So how is it possible there's no machlokas in there? It's literally impossible. So what does it mean when Rashi says this is the first machlokas? Right? I think it's a good question. We will see. That's going to be answered tonight, hopefully, if we get to it. So that's another kind of a question. I'm throwing out questions, okay? Another question. Anybody here ever learn Ketzim Nevarchin? Brachos. Maybe yes, maybe no. Okay. So right there in the beginning, it says Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Shimon. So there's in the Torah there's a mitzvah of Arla. For the first 3 years of a tree that you plant, you can't eat the fruit. And then in the 4th year, you have to bring it to Yerushalayim and eat it there. Okay. So Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Chad Tani Karen Ravai, Chad Tani Neter Ravai. Okay. So I picked this Gemara because there's like a few issues in it. Okay, so this is not a common thing in the Gemara, but in the Mishnah, the concept of Ravai is brought up. Ravai is the fruit of the 4th year. Okay, that you're supposed to bring to the Mikdash and eat there, and so on and so forth. So it's mentioned many times in the Mishnah. So the machlokas between Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi, okay, about whether every time it says it in the Mishnah, is it Neta Ravai or Kerem Ravai? If it's Kerem Ravai, it means that mitzvah only applies to grapes. Okay? And if it's Neta Ravai, it applies to all fruit trees. Right? All trees. Okay? So, there's a machlokas like this. Okay? It's not a machlokas about a specific issue. It's a machlokas about the girsa in the Mishnah, not in one place, in every place. Okay? Right? And to make things worse, okay, I will, yeah.
question: does the Yerushalmi have this machlokas? Because I
didn't check.
just imagine Yerushalmi because I assume we believe in Yerushalmi lived in Israel, therefore they
So
every day.
hold that thought because it's much worse than that. Okay. Who is Rabbi Chia? Anybody know who Rabbi Chia is? Not really. Not real. He's Rabbi Chia. So you can have a hint of who he is by the guy he's disagreeing with. Who's he disagreeing with? Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe, right? Rabbi Shimon was Rebbe's son. He was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's son. So the guy, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote the Mishnah, and his son, borderline, Rabbi Chia was on Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's Bezdin. Okay, so immediately following when the Mishnah was written, you have this machlokas about every single time that in the Mishnah the Ravai is mentioned. How did that happen? How could that happen? Right? How could that happen? And what does it mean? What does it mean? How could there be that kind of a suffix? Right? It's immediately following it. Okay, it's a strange thing, right? There's a lot of strange things in the Torah when you look carefully. Hopefully, we'll answer some of them. Okay, so then the Gemara continues. So that was that's right. Okay. Ulaman detani kerem ravai hanicha I alif gzeira shava detanya Rabbi Omer nemar kan lahosif lechem tvuas avinemar lahalon tvuas kerem malon kerem afkan kerem. Okay. So I have to remember why I included this, but there's a gzeira shava. Anybody know what a gzeira shava is?
Yeah, 2 words. There's 2 words.
Right. So according, if you learn, if Karen Ravai, how do you get to the conclusion of Karen Ravai? Right. You get to the conclusion of Karen Ravai because there's a Gzeir Shavas. So one place by Ravai it says Lahosif Lachem Tvu Aso. Tvu Aso just means like yield of the land, right? And another place it refers to Tvuas Hakerem as the yield of a vineyard, right? So they learn Gzeir Shava because the word here and the word here. So then we decide that it means a vineyard only. Okay, so if you learn Gzeir Shava, good. Okay. Now, there's like a bunch of questions with this. One is that I just want to throw out there, and we will deal with this over the year. Another things that we're going to deal about is, anybody here ever notice that like the drushes, like Gzeir Shava, that they're like weird, and that they don't make any sense, right? Yeah. But you don't have to be embarrassed to say it. They don't make any sense, right? Okay, so we're going to deal with that. If you listen, I hope they will make perfect sense. Okay? They make sense. Okay? So that's number one. Gzeir Shava, weird. Second, there's a special rule about Gzeir Shava. Right? The special rule is that you can only make Gzeir Shava if you have a Masorah on that Gzeir Shava. So unlike all the other Midos Shatar and Dreshes then, where presumably a Chacham can come along and devise one, like we have a question, I found a Klau Pratu Klau. Right? I found one. Right? And we can answer the question like this. A Gzeir Shava, you must have a Masorah. So then how exactly can we have a machlokas between Karen Ravai and Netar Ravai? According to the Rambam. Right? So this Masorah of Gzeir Shava, where does it come from? Right? Secondly, I would ask, and we're going to do another question we asked about, if you have a Masorah of Gzeir Shava, right, then if you have a Masorah of Gzeir Shava, right, then what about the guy who's disagreeing with you? So if I have a Masorah, if I show up and I say I have a Masorah of Gzeir Shava, Tvua, and we learn from them that it's Karen Ravai, so the other guy is going to say what? I don't trust your Masorah? What kind of the thing is that, right? So, a little strange. Okay. While we're on drushes, next source, Rabbi Shmuel. So how many midos of drush are there? Wrong! Rabbi Shmuel Omer Miyod Gimel Yosatar Nidrashes. So Rabbi Shmuel famously said that brisa comes from, it's printed, it's a brisa, and it's printed at the beginning of the Sifra, right? The Sifra. So there's going to be some books, there's actually a bunch of like very important Torah Shabbat Peh books that do not get mentioned very often. So we're sort of familiar with the Mishnah and the Gemara, but there's the Tosefta, and there's also something called the Sifra. We're going to talk about this. The Sifra is a collection of halachic midrashim on Sefer Vayikra. Okay? It's a very, very important book, extremely, okay? And it actually is quoted a lot in Gemara. Like often brises come from there. And in the Mishnah. It will be discussed later on. But it's at the beginning. There's the brisa of Rabbi Shmuel, right? The Yud Gimel Midos of Rabbi Shmuel are from there. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Yud Gimel Midos, Atar Nidrashes Mikal V'Chomer Gzeir Shava, and so on and so forth. And then it continues. Hillel Darash Sheva Midos Lifnei Ziknei B'nei Psera, and then it has a different list. Okay, apparently Hillel, sort of a chashuv guy in the Masorah of Torah Sheba'al Peh, he had 7. It's a little weird. Those rules seem to be very, very fundamental. They invent halachas. So you would assume that there would be consensus about them. There's not. Okay? Lots of drushes. There's a machlokas about the drushes themselves. How does that work? According to the Rambam, that means that the drushes can't be misinai. Right? Because remember the Rambam said anything that's misinai, you can't have a machlokas. So if there's machlokas about whether or not a certain thing is a drasha, a valid method of drasha, it means that according to the Rambam, it can't be misinai.
But he does hold that, no?
What?
That it's not Messina.
I think he holds the not misinai. Well, we'll get to it.
No, because he says that it's the
No, there he's talking about the things that are derived from a drasha. He's talking about the end halacha, not the midos shatar nidresh ben themselves.
right. But if the Torah Sheba'al Peh was defined, like given by God with the 13 principles or 7, whatever, of drasha, right? Then if you use them, then you're just using the Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's what is Torah Sheba'al Peh, right? It's just saying that's what the Torah said, right? That's
Right.
it. So if they come from it, you can't possibly say that it's a product, but that's their one. It's impossible.
Okay, so we'll deal with all that's going to get dealt with. There's a big machlokas between the Ramban and the Rambam about this. It's not clear exactly. There's some stuff there that doesn't get resolved, but because you just said a lot of things, right? And they're good things, they're not bad things, right? But in general, there's this. Right, I will just say that the Ramban he says explicitly, the midos shatar and nidreshes ben have to be misinai. If they're not misinai, they're invalid. He says that. Okay, all right. Whereas according to this, it's sort of hard to understand why the Rambam holds, how he could possibly hold their misinai. All right, so I think we have to eat dinner, and we will continue after dinner. But do we need to hold on to the sheets? I don't think we need to hold on to the sheets, and we'll start. We'll do the first machlokas is after dinner. Hold on a second, I gotta stop the recording. Just a second. Stop.